Cold, gray, soulless, lifeless, and desolate. Some of the few words used to describe the look in my eyes as I advanced through my 30s unmarried and childless, and also some of the words used to describe the most despised form of architecture on the planet. Brutalism. They look like prisons, feel like prisons, and sometimes are literally actually prisons. I'm King Trout, and you'll take whatever slop I throw in your trough, so here this is. Join me today as we discuss the history of, the symbology.
Oh, and I'm sure the word you were looking for was symbolism. What is the symbolism there?
It's a Boondock Saints reference. Great flick, it's about 25 years old. Older than most of you, probably. Willem Dafoe, nails it. And future of Brutalist Architecture. We'll tear it down brick by brick. Get it? What is architecture? Well, Merriam-Webster defines architecture as the design of how you be building shit and stuff. Probably. We all know what architecture is. What is brutalism, though? And where did it start? Now, to vastly oversimplify an incredibly complicated and convoluted story related to design history, brutalism came from what was called the modernist movement. Modernism came about primarily at the turn of the 20th century in response to a couple of not-so-great things which had happened. The big one being a war you might have heard of, World War I. Some of the people who had witnessed the atrocities man was capable of thought that, maybe in this modern secular world, man-made horrors beyond our own comprehension, maybe we don't even deserve beauty. Which, okay, is a lame art nerd thing to think. Of course we deserve beauty. You're a human being too, you stupid idiot. Whatever. The modernists stripped design down to its basic principles: shape, form, color. They removed any unnecessary ornamentation. One of the pioneers of this modernist architecture movement was a Swiss Frenchman by the name of Le Corbusier. He was obsessed with pure geometric forms, much like a toddler, and the industrial processes which allowed for the production of concrete, steel, and glass in ways that had never been possible before. He also believed that buildings should not serve any purpose in regards to providing beauty. He saw buildings as parts of a machine. He envisioned and designed cities of the future wherein each building served as a cell, a cog functioning in the higher purpose of the machine. In his designs, each of these cells were entirely utilitarian and egalitarian related to their specific purpose, including homes. And since he saw every building as a machine serving a function, they were entirely utilitarian, no unnecessary frills, and they were all identical. Autistic. Now, I personally don't care for the guy. I disagree with every concept he has related to design, and if you look into his personal life, he was kind of a giant piece of shit. But if ants spoke French, I bet they would love him. Remember earlier when I mentioned World War I? Well, they called it World War I because there was a World War II. Long story short, some things in Europe got blowed up. After the war, millions were homeless. At least they weren't dead. So after the war, the French government approached our boy Le Corbusier because he was, a highfalutin, artsy-fartsy architect, and they're all 10 feet up each other's asses, so he got selected to build a community housing project. So he stepped up to the plate and designed l'unité de habitation. God, I hate French. In Marseille, and he designed it in his typical fashion. A giant soulless concrete cube devoid of any beauty that exists only to serve a functional purpose. That function being housing human beings. How egalitarian. In his original design for the Looney Toony escargot, or whatever the hell it's called, the exterior was supposed to be made of a smooth white concrete, but Home Skillet hired 80 different contractors to work on the building. And since he clearly does not understand how human beings work, there was some mild miscommunication. The multiple concrete contractors working on the building made an oopsie-poopsie. As someone who has worked on construction sites, this does not surprise me. I have never met a concrete guy who had an IQ higher than that of a sea anemone. They let the concrete cure in its entirety in the wooden forms before removing them, so instead of having the smooth texture it was supposed to on the outside, it had the rough wooden texture of the forms that they had poured it into. Now, old Bug Boy saw this and kind of freaked out and responded, "Leave it raw," which, coming back around on old Ant-Man. Also a big fan of raw. raw, of doing it raw. My mom watches these. I'm sorry, Mom. Also, I'm leaving this hat on for the rest of the video. I was getting a little bit self-conscious about the way that my hair looks, and I'm incredibly vain. Leave me a comment below telling me what a beautiful, wonderful human being I am. I require the validation of strangers on the internet. Just kidding. I'm perfectly comfortable with who I am as a human being, as you should be too. Perfectly comfortable with who I am, I mean. What were we talking about? Whose dog is that? Whose kitchen am I in? What is going on right now? You fools, you absolute buffoons. I lied to you and you believed me. Le Corbusier didn't say leave it raw concrete because he didn't speak English. He spoke French, so he said laissez le béton brut. Béton brut means raw concrete in French. Brut. Brutalism. Brutalism. That's where the name comes from. French term for raw concrete. Next clip. I missed the button. Next clip. So yeah, everybody in Europe looked at this big, ugly, stupid cube and went, neato burrito. I mean, in fairness, it was kind of like the first time anybody had really designed a building like that, so there was some level of novelty to it. But there were added benefits from the style. One, since there's no ornamentation, it could be built incredibly quickly. And two, since the main ingredient in the big, ugly box is concrete, it could be built for very cheap. And at this point in time, immediately following World War II, Europe was desperate for some buildings. One last fun fact about Le Corbusier is he designed the headquarters for the UN. Yet another reason for me to hate him. The style became especially popular in the post-war period of the 40s and 50s in England, because the Fuhrer in the Reichstag set everyone attack and turned England into a ballroom blitz. Ballroom blitz. The buildings could be mass-produced quickly and for very cheap, because it was all about function and no form. Except for cube.
Prepare yourself for cube.
They got the job done. People were homed. Throughout the 40s and 50s, the Brits were popping these bad boys up left and right. Buildings like this one, and this one. Everybody just kind of dealt with it, until they reached a time where they were economically in a situation where they no longer had to live in what is essentially a concrete shoebox along with 5,000 other people in identical concrete shoeboxes, and everyone realized, hey, these buildings kind of fucking suck. This realization partially inspired the postmodernist architecture movement, which I have opinions about in and of itself, but I mean, at least it's got personality, you know? One group of people who saw these brutalist buildings and ran with them, though, were the commies.
You mean to tell me we can build building for very cheap and everyone live in identical soulless cube? Is the Soviet dream?
Yeah, the commies fucking loved that shit. I'm sure you've heard the term commie block, referring to the Soviet-style apartment complexes like the one Jamie's pulling up right here. Yeah, that's brutalist architecture, baby. Good. Bleh. Bleh. You know what I'm saying? For the commies, it wasn't so much about the design of brutalism itself, it was more about the principles behind the design. Utilitarian, egalitarian, no need for bourgeoisie beauty. And they were cheap to make, and they were poor, so, you know. While the original intentions behind the designs of brutalism were more in line with stripping things down to their most fundamental principles, they incidentally just so happened to perfectly fall in line with communistic ideology. And for the record, even during the time in Western Europe when this style was coming to prominence, there were a lot of critics. As a matter of fact, the only people who really seemed to have any positive things to say about brutalism were like art critics. Just the, you know the type of person I'm talking about. Which brings me to a fun story. One of the most prominent brutalist architects in post-war England was a man by the name of Erno Goldfinger. Goldfinger. Where have I heard that name before? I don't know, but maybe it'll come up shortly in this story. Now, Goldfinger was the architect behind such hideous monstrosities as this ugly piece of shit, and this other nearly identical looking piece of shit. There was an author in post-war England who happened to be writing a book, and he hadn't yet named the villain in this book. That author's name was Ian Fleming. Fleming found out that Goldfinger had had 3 historic cottages demolished in order to build this ugly piece of shit. Having learned that information, he decided to name the villain in the novel he was writing after Goldfinger. Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to live in the pod and eat the bugs. My references are getting more antiquated as this video goes on. As soon as Western Europeans could afford to not live in a soulless concrete cube anymore, they decided, hey, let's stop doing that, and architectural design quickly advanced. This was not the case in Eastern Europe, especially in the Soviet Union and its allied nations. Khrushchev loved brutalism. Stalin, believe it or not, was actually the opposite. There's a whole category of Stalinist architecture. Stalin's idea for post-war Soviet architecture was essentially an attempt to flex on the Western world. So he wanted like real fancy bougie shit, no pun intended, to kind of show what the Soviet Union was capable of. Khrushchev thought the exact opposite. In a speech to the All-Union Conference of Builders in 1954, Khrushchev actually criticized Stalinistic architecture, said it was too extravagant and bourgeoisie. We must all live in concrete cube with no personality. Everyone gets the same thing. These buildings, these housing units, apartments essentially, actually got nicknamed after him. They were called Khrushchevkas. I don't know what that means in Russian because I don't speak Russian, but I mean his name's in it, so that's what they were called. Anyway, I don't like Google it, I guess. So, in an attempt to make building across the Soviet Union and its allied states more standardized and to eke every last ounce of joy out of the Soviet people, Khrushchev and the Union got together and created a catalog of standardized buildings. And the designs? Strictly brutalist, baby! No beauty to be found here. Pure functionality. Just what everybody wants. They weren't very creative with the names either. Like, check out this bad boy. This building design is entitled 1-464. Now, this brings me to a question I have been asking myself since I decided to make a video on this topic. Kind of a chicken and an egg type question. In Western media, we tend to associate brutalist architecture with totalitarianism, depression, isolation, all of these negative thoughts. And I don't know if we associate brutalism with those thoughts because it has been adopted by totalitarian regimes, or if totalitarian regimes adopt brutalist architecture because it's so devoid of humanity. And I kind of think it's the latter. I mean, it fits so in line with the ideals of a totalitarian regime or government. It's stripping the humanity and beauty away from everyone. Everything goes down to its fundamental nature. Like the building I just showed, it doesn't even have a real name. It's just a number, a code. You aren't allowed to experience beauty. You don't deserve it. You get exactly what everyone else has. Nothing more, nothing less. You live in a concrete cube devoid of any soul. I hate brutalism. So what does the future hold for brutalist architecture? Well, praise be to Allah, a lot of these buildings are actually being demolished. Some are trying to defend them and saying, you know, that we should keep them just as a part of art history, blah, 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 blah. Whatever, I get that, okay? But also, on the same token, when polled, the public usually votes that the ugliest buildings in their countries are brutalist buildings. It's a universally loathed and hated style of architecture, and I completely understand why. I hate it. I think it's ugly. It's devoid of soul. It's completely inhuman. There's no reason that human beings do not deserve beauty. Yes, we're capable of evil. I get that. We're also capable of building magnificent, glorious wonders. And so we should. Of course we deserve beauty. What a dumb, self-loathing thought to have. Pathetic. Some people are actually nostalgic for brutalist architecture, primarily Eastern Europeans who grew up in, former Soviet countries, which I kind of get. I grew up in depressing concrete cube. Of course, I have good fond memory of concrete cube with rug hanging on the wall because it's so cold. Whatever. Not for me. Thank you. They remind me of like Half-Life, which makes sense because there are brutalist buildings in Half-Life, which again, world being run by a totalitarian regime. Granted, they are aliens from another dimension, but the point stands. Editor's note. So in the process of editing this video, I kind of looked into the Half-Life thing. Basically, I was just looking for a picture to show. And then I found out there's this really interesting, I fucking hate Reddit, but I found this really interesting Reddit thread where this guy found all of the places where they modeled all of the buildings in Half-Life 2 after. So in City 17, where, you know, the aliens are oppressing everybody, they're actually all modeled after real buildings in Bulgaria. I'm not sure which city, but thought that was interesting. It kind of harkens back to the point I made about pop culture a minute ago. Editor's note.
Hey baby, you coming to bed?
I told you that I'm busy right now.
You're busy making silly videos again?
It's a real fucking job, and you need to start taking it seriously.
Okay, well, I'll be in bed.
Selfish fucking bitch. Editor's note. So when I say in the editor's note that I had mentioned previously, pop culture, bringing it up, I bring that up after the editor's note. So I'm going to finish the editor's note so I can go back to the editor's note so I can go back to making that point, which I haven't even made yet. What a fucking bitch. Just wanted to share that. Anyway, back to the video. Yes, I'm still wearing the same hoodie as I was 2 days ago. And now that I've just had that thought about Half-Life, I genuinely believe that the reason that we associate in our pop culture these brutalist buildings with totalitarianism and oppression is because they are inherently oppressive. I don't think that the association comes from the other way. The reason a totalitarian regime would choose those buildings is the same reason that you would be given a number instead of a name. It's to strip away your identity or any part of you that makes you feel that humanity. Of course we fucking deserve beauty. We're human beings. I don't know how to conclude this video. I genuinely just wanted an excuse to rant about how much I hate brutalism and communism for 15 minutes. So, I don't know, maybe I'll wrap it up here and go outside and enjoy beauty. How do you like that, brutalists? How do you like that, modernists?
Up yours, woke moralists.
I deserve beauty. Everyone deserves beauty. Fuck you. Fuck you. Yeah, I want to go outside. I've been sitting here for like 6 hours. Anyway, I've been King Trout. I'll see you when I see you. Love you. Bye. Editor's note.
Hey babe.
You're
Where
fine.
are you going?
Hold on. So I'm gonna say editor's note, and then be like, babe, are you coming to bed? You got it?
Okay, yeah, I
And
didn't
then-
know you were going yet.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I didn't say action. All right.
I didn't say action.
All right, action. Editor's note. When I say that I'm bringing, I fucked it up. We got to do it over. I'm sorry.
I'm so bad at it. I feel like I can tell I'm trying.
No, you're just talking to me. We were just talking right now.
No, we're just talking.
We were just talking.